And we're back yet again. How you doing, Eric?
Good, man. Good to see you, bud.
How's life over there?
Well, I'm in the darkness again.
Yeah, we got to work on that lighting.
I'm in a dark room.
People need to see the beautiful skin that does not wear sunscreen, I'm told.
Yeah, this 40-year-old sun-kissed skin starting to crack.
All right, so last week we talked. You and I were, should we say, like bearish, different time horizons, but I think you and I on a, I would say, medium to long term. Let's call it 3 months, 3 to 6 months for the sake of clarity here. 3 to 6 month time horizon. You would say that you were probably a little bit bearish, right?
Oh yeah. Well, just to be clear, last week we didn't record, or you did a solo, so it was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that was 2 weeks ago. God,
yeah.
I blocked that out of my memory. It just wasn't the same without you.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I said that I was selling everything in my portfolio, and that seemed to be pretty well timed.
That's wild.
Got lucky.
Now, when you say your portfolio, are you including your retirement stuff and everything as well, or do you have like a separate kind of trading investment portfolio that sits outside of that, or how do you handle that?
No, I just talk about everything. I was selling everything.
Oh wow! So you went all cash.
Yeah, I mean, I say like everything. I probably trimmed everything. I didn't really
You sold a lot.
Sold.
How much cash you sitting on, do you think?
Above 50. I mean,
above
that to
50.
me is like
nice.
That's like a lot for me. I typically don't sell. I mean, I haven't sold in years, so I just kind of sold everything.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's probably about what I'm sitting on right now. So I'm right there with you. What are you holding for your cash? Are you literally holding cash? Are you in T-bills or 2 years?
Money market, and I use that to sell options. But yeah, money market fund.
I like the money market fund, collateral, sell the options for income. It's clean. I like it.
Yeah.
I feel like the money market, the short term, that's the safe way to be in cash. Seems dumb to be like literally in cash, right? Like why would you?
Yeah. So the money market fund, at least the one that I use with Schwab, maybe getting too deep into the weeds here, but with Schwab, you actually have to buy a money market fund with your cash, so that if you actually want to use that, it takes a day to get out of the money market fund. So that's a downside, the illiquidity, the 1 day illiquidity.
But you could use it as collateral to buy something, right? Get immediately into a position, then get out of it. Is that
yeah,
that's
you can
cool.
still do that. But on Interactive Brokers, they have that sweep function, which they just put all your excess cash into money market for you. So there's no illiquidity. That's nice.
Oh yeah, the sweep. That's nice. I love that. Yeah, so it seems like the short term money market, that's the safe play. Seems there's been good value in basically being long the 2 year, because you are collecting the note, but then also it seems like the price is going up as rates have been dropping on the 2 year. Have you been following the 2 year yield at all?
Yeah, the 2 year. Why is the 2 year yield dropping more precipitously than, I guess, the longer end?
I mean, great question, sir.
It seems like here's something that I liked that you brought up 2 weeks ago is the TLT, which is the long duration bond fund.
TLT is that's the aggressive play, right? Because whenever you have all of this duration exposure, the price of the underlying, it goes up and down a lot. Like TLT could move quite substantially, right? And if you're just holding 3 month bills or something, the price on them it's not going to budge, because the expiration it's just right around the corner there. So yeah, most of my cash is in TLT, which is a scarier, more aggressive position, because you're probably basically betting on a slowdown, right? Like a short-term growth scare type of thing, which I do think is the more likely result of the tariff stuff. Everybody's talking about inflation as a byproduct of that, and that does not make any sense to me. I'm seeing Trump tariff Canada, and Trudeau's we're putting reciprocal tariffs back on you, and then Trump's somebody tell him that I'm going to reciprocate his reciprocating tariffs with more reciprocating tariffs. And it's just this escalating game of chicken that's been being played. And I don't know how the result of that is inflation. The end result of that seems to be everybody just Mexican standoff with guns, and then something crashes, right? Alongside, of course, like all of the cuts they're making in government with Doge, we're laying off people, all these people that would have been spending money in the economy, they're losing jobs. And Andy Constant's been posting this, like, the tap the sign meme.
Oh yeah, from The Simpsons. What meme is it?
The don't make me tap the sign.
Yeah.
It's like, don't make me tap the sign. It says like Trump wants stocks lower, Besant wants stocks lower, Powell wants stocks lower.
Yeah. So
it's been,
I mean, when something like that happens, typically bonds perform well, and then you go longest duration to get the best performance. Typically, I guess what I'm afraid of is like, are they trying to engineer some sort of yield curve twist? Oh, beautiful. But like, I guess the risk is if you're in TLT, you want bond yields to come down, bond prices to go higher. But what if it's like only the 2-year moves and the long end doesn't move? I think that's something I'm cognizant of because I jumped on a trade with you.
It's a bit of a dangerous thing for sure. I mean, but like I wouldn't consider myself to be like some sort of big brain macro genius guy. Like I like to take trades, and I like to have like macro stuff as confluence. And we were looking at TLT, and it just looked like a good trade from a technical perspective, right? Because to, I guess, come back to what we were talking about the other week, because I think some time has passed now. We talked about TLT as having this little diagonal breakout here on the weekly, right? It's certainly the type of candle you want to see on like a diagonal trend breakout, and that breakout is happening, as we talked about, in the context of this kind of multi-year base for this asset going all the way back to 2003 or so. Seemed like a good place to hide out for me. It seemed like this could easily run to like 110 or something, right? So if this runs from 91 to 110, you're talking about like a 25% gain. It's really not like a sit back and collect coupon things, right? Like you're talking about maybe booking 25% in like a couple months or something if something goes crazy, which is obviously a much more aggressive and speculative play than simply sitting in cash, But I kind of like it just like alongside the Bitcoin I still hold. My portfolio is mostly like TLT and Bitcoin as far as like things that I hold. Like the TLT position is now larger than my Bitcoin position. I still have some like actual cash, but it's mostly like TLT, and I like that it kind of offsets the Bitcoin in a particular way. At least that's what I'm hoping happens. It would be really shitty to get into some scenario where TLT dives and Bitcoin dies. That would be the ultimate egg on my face. So I think most people listening to this should probably just sit in bonds. Maybe sit in the 2-year, some sort of 2-year short, medium duration fund or something like that.
Okay, because I went irresponsible. I bought options. I bought options on the TLT.
Now that's a heck of a cash position.
Yeah, I bought options, and I really like this trade. I feel like it's a high probability trade, and I think when I put it on, I was looking earlier this morning, and I was up like 30% since I put it on.
We had a bit of a whipsaw this morning in markets. Yeah, I mean TLT took a dive. I mean, and then the stocks did the opposite. I mean, we had a monthly close before our last episode or after our last episode, so it might be worth revisiting some of the charts here. I mean, the NASDAQ monthly chart looks kind of, I don't want to say horrific, but like really sketchy to me. It's like clearly you can just tell visually that this move has lost momentum, right? Like you've gone from
it's about to tip over.
Yeah, you've gone from these like big expansion candles to like you've had this really, really strong sell-off here, and you recover from it, but like now we've got these wicks to the upside. This candle here is like, it's like almost like a hanging man. Not quite a hanging man, but it's like hanging man-esque. So a hanging man candle, you get at the top of trends sometimes. It's like a kind of like a topping indicator. So you'll see like a skinny body and then a long wick that's like 2x or so the length of the body. And basically you see that like sellers kind of step in, pull the price down a lot. The bulls bring the price back up to the open, but it's the sort of first indication that like a lot of shots have been fired in the market. Like, I don't know, like you could consider this one actually, like this might be, it would be better if this candle was kind of at the top of the trend. Like if this was up here, that would be kind of interesting hanging man status. But you could say like, oh, okay, this was sort of like a warning shot. This was some cracks on the foundation here last August. And then obviously we had immediately after this, the market started sort of pricing in Trump, right? And then all this rally was just pulling Trump stuff forward after this like weakness that was shown in the summer. But now we're all sitting back being like, what did we get ourselves involved with here? And it's kind of worth questioning whether we're going to retrace. I mean, we've almost retraced this entire move from August, right? And where was the election low? The election low was November. Yeah. So this is the election low. So we've retraced the whole move after already showing these early signs of weakness. I mean, it looks really, really sketchy to me.
So I'm like learning technical analysis from you in real time. Like one question I had is, you described this hanging man candle, and I think it's like what I'm learning is that it's so context dependent, because sometimes you see like a candle, I guess, that looks the exact same. You'd call it like a hammer candle.
Yeah, very similar candle. You see that at the bottom of a
the hammer like is a signal that like sellers tried to come in and price rejected off. Kind of like zoomed back out of that.
Yeah, correct. I mean, look. Hammer.
There you go.
Classic hammer right there. But this is context dependent, right? This is after a sell off, and you're trading into like kind of the origin demand of this leg, right? So you see that in that context, and it's suddenly like, oh, this is a good place for a reversal because of where this exists. You can't just like see this candle and just trade it. And even like the hanging man candle, right? It's not like you see hanging man and you short. It's sort of like somebody's sitting there like waving the caution flag on the racetrack, right? There's still other stuff that needs to happen. But we pointed out like a couple of red flags, right? So the main red flag to me was this sort of double top that we had on the daily. I think we pointed this out when we were sort of like over here, right? You had double top on the daily, and then you had a close below this order block here, which is a change in the state of delivery. It's a signal that the order flow has shifted from bullish to bearish, right? And the trick to trading is like you're trying to spot these areas in the higher time frame price action where you can see something on the lower time frame and kind of hop on board it and hoping that it turns into something that's like a higher time frame trend, right? So if you see something that's bearish on the weekly chart, and you've kind of aligned all the time frames and you have the context right, and you see something bearish happening on the hourly or like the 4-hour chart, you might be able to parlay that 4-hour move into like a weekly move or a multi-week move, right? And then suddenly you've hit like a huge move because you've taken that in context. Whereas like if you take the long on like the 4-hour chart, but it's happening in the context of like a bullish area at the bottom of a weekly range, well, now you're in like a misalignment between what you're trading on the lower time frame and what's happening on the higher time frame, and you can't expect that lower time frame move to play out because you're swimming upstream. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So
I guess like
we had the oh sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Man.
Yeah, no, I'm saying so we had the double top there, and it was categorized too by a couple of these you familiar with the BPR?
Balanced price range.
Balanced price range. That's right. Bullish fair value gap in, bullish fair value gap out. So we had one there at that top. We put one in here on the retest of the BPR itself. And then we came back and we, on the double top, put in like another one right there. So a lot of red flags. And then the final red flag that I actually realized I forgot to even talk about when we ended the episode is, you familiar with the SMT? We ever talked about the SMT? The SMT is a usual. It's an interesting move where you take two assets that are highly correlated, and you look for slight differences in the price action in one of them. So here's NASDAQ, and let me throw ES on the chart here, and let me make this so that you can see it. Okay, so let's do that. Let's throw ES, which is the S&P, on here. And then let's take a look at what happened here on NASDAQ versus the S&P. And if I zoom in a little bit here, hopefully you can see what's going on.
Man, nice charting, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, so there's S&P. See how S&P sweeps the high? See how I've changed both charts, damn it. Why did we do that? Oh, we synced the symbol. My bad. Maybe Alan can salvage this in the editing. make it a smoother viewer experience. There we go. Okay. So this is an SMT. You've got higher high on S&P, sweeps the high, lower high on the NASDAQ, right? So when you observe like these two correlated assets, like decorrelating, and you maybe already have like a bearish bias, right? And you put in this kind of lower high while the higher high is put in. Some people might be not wanting to short here because you're like, okay, I don't like shorting with equal highs above. Like the equal highs, they tend to pull price back up and people enter shorts early and they get swept and they get taken out of the trade. But if you have the context of looking at the other correlated asset class and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this asset already swept the high. This is actually just an indication of like some serious relative weakness in the NASDAQ. And so, you know, I initiated I think I talked about this short trade right around here on this daily close around, 21.6. And I did that via QQQ puts.
Nice. Well, those are performing well. I think a couple of weeks ago when we talked about becoming bearish, it was like before the pullback even happened or right at the beginning. And then on Alfalfa, we talked about it a little bit. And we mentioned that, the S&P was only down 3% or so as like the high flying names were getting hammered. Mm-hmm. But now, the indices are down more. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or indications on how far down we could go.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, what we're doing right now is we're flirting with the 200, right? It's the 200 moving average. And this has been like quite the thing to trade, actually. Like you can see if I zoom out on this, like see the reactions we get off this.
It's like a buy every time.
Big reaction. Right. But like the last time we were above it and closed through it was here.
And what was that, 2022?
This was 2022, right? So we closed through it, and that was like a very, very nasty move. I mean, we went down an additional 31% just from the close through it, not even from the top, right? So that was quite a bearish signal when that happened. Yeah, it's the NASDAQ. Happened during COVID, right? We were already tanking, but even so, it went down another 20% there.
That's additional from crossing the 200-day.
Yes.
That's additionally. Oh my goodness.
Now here you had a little bit of a fake out. Sometimes you want to like see like multiple closes. Like, can you accept below? Like here in 2019, we had the close and then immediate close back above. That ended up being a big long. You got 15% boom right away. And then if you held it the whole way up after the retest, you got 40%, right? So it's quite the interesting pivot in price. This was the taper tantrum, right? And 2018, we initially closed below a little bit of a reaction, but then once we accepted below here, 16%. Like these pretty big moves. So it's a critical level to watch out for. We looked like we were going to close below it today, and then some shenanigans at the end of the day, and we saved the daily for now. But I think you were asking like where could this go? So you never know like how bad shit's gonna get. Like you can see on the daily, like we've been kind of like losing the trend, right? Like we've lost the daily trend. Maybe we're coming back up for like an underside retest. But daily momentum is kind of shot. On the weekly, right? Might close through the weekly averages this week. Another kind of shitty thing. I think we also talked about the monthly RSI as well, and like there's some very scary stuff where you have this kind of like mega high time frame bearish divergence happening. It's just like a lot of signs of momentum waning. As for like where we're going, my eye is first always drawn to like where's the unmitigated high time frame demand. Like where is demand that hasn't been tested yet? And for me on NQ, which is NASDAQ futures. We have this like very big zone here. And like the mid range of this is 19.1 or so. So that's another 6% down from here. Not too bad. That's kind of like my first target. Definitely possible that we run this low here at 18.3. I would say that's like highly likely if this move continues. That's negative 9 10% from here. Kind of gross, right? Kind of gross, but still not crazy. I mean, the problem comes like if this starts getting a little ugly, and I'm just a little worried at this point that, you know, this ends up being kind of like a bit of a deviation. As I said on the monthly chart, like these monthly candles, they look kind of crappy. And if you look at where demand is on the monthly, demand is down here.
Woof.
And now this is a bad move, right? This is negative 25% to 15K or so.
Damn. And we're already down like, I don't know, on NASDAQ, we're probably down like 8% or so.
Yeah. And you have to start wondering if like this becomes like this entire move here, right? This is your 2022, 2023 kind of bear run on a really big time frame. Like this is just like a gigantic bullish zone, just like a gigantic area of bullish demand. And when you see price start moving back towards these areas, like it typically looks to bottom out around like the 50%. It looks to go to the 50, which is like 13.6, and then you have this liquidity here, you know. But that's a nasty move. 33% from here.
I don't think people are prepared for that.
I don't think people are. It's been a long period of just basically up only in TradFi land. You know, crypto has had mixed results. If you've been long Bitcoin, I mean, you're just eating. You've just been eating nonstop and minimal kind of pain, right? But everything else, lots of pain. But stocks have had no pain. I mean, look at this chart. It's just basically up only. So we're just in this weird period where it's just like, how bad will they let it get? I think if they go like full tariff, and Andy is right about the sign, right? Like if the sign, stocks down, stocks down, stocks down. If everybody wants stocks down and they do that, like stocks have a long way they can go down. And I'm sure from if you put your fundamental hat on, you wouldn't be sitting here telling me that the market as a whole is cheap by any valuation metrics, right?
No, on earnings, it looks above average in terms of expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. So not insane, but like I did see that the Buffett indicator is like 2.5 standard deviations above right now.
Is that his favorite like GDP, like stock market cap to GDP?
Yeah. What exactly is the Buffett indicator? Let me.
It's one of his common ones, but that thing's been running hot for
yeah. You're right. Ratio total stock market divided by GDP. Yeah. That's scary because it's like markets, they go up for a while, right? There's a saying, obviously, markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent, right? Like they have inertia to them. They go, and people just at a certain point go, oh, this is the new normal. This thing doesn't apply anymore because XYZ happened, and everybody just accepts that. And then they're like, yeah, we can throw that thing out the window. And then lo and behold, like years later, right? Because sometimes this stuff takes a long time to play out. You find out that actually no, and then you rubber band back to the mean or back below the mean, right? So, you know, a bit scary. And speaking of means, like another way you think about means or averages and trading is you have ranges, and those ranges have mid ranges, right? So if you start losing momentum here and going down, you got to immediately ask yourself, well, what is the mid range? And the high time frame mid range here is 16.4, and that's just again to have the rubber band snap to quote unquote, you know, equilibrium. That's not to say you can't stretch the band back in the other direction. So a lot of potential danger.
I think when I was selling stuff 2 weeks ago, it was mostly like with this view of increased volatility in like this February, March timeframe. But now that we're like seeing the volatility, I'm left wondering like, oh shit, is this more than just like seasonal vol and just like options expirations? Is this more? And is this like a recession? Is this something to really just guard against?
Yeah, I mean, I would just love to understand the bull case better for how stuff keeps going from a fundamental perspective. The main point for the bulls, I guess, is that it doesn't seem like they're really slashing the government spending that much. So point for the bulls there, because I think a lot of the economy over the last few years has just been juiced by, you know, government spending. But on the other hand, they they are reducing and claim to be actively looking to reduce more people from the federal payroll and kind of slash and burn that. And obviously that directly translates to people losing their jobs and not spending. I guess, maybe they have the severance, and maybe the severance carries over, and maybe they land the plane and everything. But, you have to wonder how long can that last, right? And it, like we pointed out earlier, it's just never a good sign where you run up on some news in the hope of something, and then you find yourself all the way back at the point where you ran up. Because like typically during that run up, a lot of the people who bought already sold, and now you have a bunch of bag holders who like hopped along for the ride. And all those people right now in stocks, like they've just started to round trip their Trump positions, right? Like just today, last week, right? They've only started to feel a little bit of pain. So we haven't even seen that potential capitulation of people who hopped on board that, and maybe they're okay break even, but then they go down like 5% or something, and then they're like, "Oh, screw this! I'm out. I can't deal with it." And then the selling ensues.
I can see. Okay, so let me steel man it. Maybe like a bull case, and that would be that your idea comes out to play. Like people don't lose as many jobs as we imagined, or they get enough severance. Like maybe the 8-month severance is juicy enough that it allows them to find new jobs. That's fine. Maybe the tariffs get matched with some stimmy checks or something. Maybe like consumer demand doesn't get hit that much with like 10% price increases.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's like
I'm not betting on that, but I'm not betting on that.
The other bull case is that the markets, they just strike so much fear in the hearts of markets with all this like tariff shit on and off, and they're like, and ultimately everything just comes off, right? Like the most bullish case, I think, is this weird world where the ultimate goal is simply to end up with just like no tariffs anywhere, right? Because we're thinking right now, there's going to be some longer term policy implemented that's designed to like move manufacturing back here and rectify quote unquote like unfair, trade deals, whatever. But like there's a scenario where like again, it's just like straight Mexican standoff. Like every country on earth is just like they're just all pointing guns at each other. Everyone's raising tariffs. Like markets are kind of like starting to shit the bed. Like the Fed is like not. Is maybe thinking about cutting, maybe does start to cut, right? And then Trump just does his like thing. He just goes in like after being a crazy person and staking out some crazy position, and then he just goes like, "Oh, actually, everything. I just want zero on everything." And then everybody's like, "Fine, just like take everything off." And then the market's like, "Holy shit, this is awesome!" And then
God, imagine
rips
that,
because there's nothing on anything. And then also there's just like relief, like, "Oh, thank God, it's like over." So I
think that's the base case.
I could see that happening.
That's my base case scenario. And then imagine it like coincides with a ceasefire in Ukraine, and we just get to like exuberance mode again.
Yeah, and look, today I saw that there was an announcement that they were going to like reopen the minerals talks, right? Like we had the fiasco last week where people on the left were like, "Oh my God, Trump is doing this to Zelensky," and people on the right were like, "This ungrateful bastard," and the White House, whatever. But like the end result of that was that the market, the world thought they weren't going to get this mineral deal, which also was, the rare earth deal in Ukraine, which was going to be like a stepping stone to peace in Russia, right? Or peace in Ukraine with Russia. And I think markets would definitely find that to be quite bullish, right? And then you saw today when that deal came back on the table, like we had like quite the rally in stocks because the stock market was down quite a bit this morning and then just rubber banded,
totally reversed,
back up. I mean, you have to wonder the extent to which they're just like intentionally fucking with markets at this point, right? Like it seems crazy, which leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is the putting on of tariffs last week again on Canada and Mexico after having threatened them, tanking the market, then removing them, pumping the market, then putting them back on last week. But then now today, apparently they're coming off again, right? So tariffs come off, mineral deals back on, markets rally. I mean, it's kind of a trader's dream. I don't know how the frig you invest in this, it's amazing. You get the 600 point scalp on NASDAQ in like an hour, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. But like, geez, like I don't even know what to tell people who are investing right. Like, what do you tell people who are investing right now in this environment? Like, are you talking to clients about this?
Yeah, I'm telling them it's time to be cautious. Like I'm not ready to buy anything. I basically view it, I think the way you're describing it is like they're kind of like manipulating the markets. I think it's like sowing the seeds for the next big bull run. And to what degree are they like pushing that spring down, sort of coiling it for the next launch? And I don't know how much they're going to coil it first, but I think I'm not ready to buy anything yet.
Yeah. And I think sitting on the sidelines and waiting for a fat pitch is fine. That's kind of like what I've been doing lately. Like I have some long exposure, right? It feels very painful to be like completely locked out of the market. Just having a little bit of long exposure is good. Just like when you're like really, really long, like having even a little bit of cash exposure is good. Like just having that little psychological thing where you're like, ooh, price went down and I can buy something is sometimes like really, really good.
So what are you DCAing? For your psyche. What are your favorite flavors?
You know, my main thing right now is like, when do I get back into Bitcoin? How do I get back into Bitcoin in a big way? I sold most of I've been like net selling crypto since December, basically. But then really took stuff off in a big way last month. The Bitcoin chart is kind of scary. There's a lot going on here, right? So zoomed out longer term, it's just a very bullish chart, right? But last month's close is a pretty ugly candle, right? You don't want to see big monthly expansion candles like this that just completely blast through the low of the previous month. You know, this was also like the highest bullish close we had. So when this happens, right, and you just have a bunch of air here and you don't have like a really rapid kind of reaction off of that, like sometimes when you have big moves, you leave these gaps behind. And ultimately, price goes back and tests these inefficiencies. And what you want to see is like all the people who like didn't get to buy in here, they come in and then you wick back in and then you go, right? That's the most desired scenario. The other possibility is that like those people are not really interested in buying there, or there's just not enough people left to buy there. And then the people who bought already have started to sell. And then price starts, instead of reacting and going higher, it starts just drifting lower until it goes back into prior demand. And that becomes tricky because that's down here, right? So it's my base assumption, simply on the basis of the TA and the price action right now, that Bitcoin is probably looking for demand lower. And I don't think that 78.2 is going to be the stone low. I just don't. I think there's a few places where you could look for a bottom. I think the first is the range high / prior all-time high here.
What's that at, like 69K?
This is 73.8.
Okay.
I think taking the low of this monthly candle here is very likely. This is 66.7. And then I think in a bad scenario, we could get down to the high 50s. So it's kind of where I'm thinking we go. People were talking about this weekly sweep candle here over the weekend. And it wasn't that excited over it because it's a good weekly candle, but it's in the context of a really bad monthly candle. And the monthly candle is just going to tend to overwhelm the weekly candle. And that's not to say that like price can't kind of go up and do something like this, which I actually think is probably the base case, like a move back 100 or so. People are just biting the hopium everywhere it's offered, right? It's like,
what do you think of that? What do you think of that hopium that they came out with over the weekend?
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about why this candle exists. I mean, for people who are, bless you, are not following this stuff, this looks really wild once you click on like the hourly chart, right? Because it's like Sunday morning, one of the most illiquid times in the market. Funny how this keeps happening. The president announces a executive order keeps doing these orders to like, I'm ordering us to look into a thing, right? It's not like, executive order to look into the strategic reserve, and it sort of like explicitly named ADA, XRP, Solana.
What the fuck was that, dude?
Completely left out like Ethereum initially.
And Bitcoin. I mean, like,
yeah, the Ethereum was bad because people already he already talked about Bitcoin, but when Ethereum was left out, people were like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
it's like not a US coin. He hates it. It's really going to zero." So, Solana was just god candled. XRP, like these things are up like 20% in a heartbeat, and Ethereum had like barely moved. And then I saw there was like a follow-up tweet, like somebody nudged them and he was just like, "Oh yeah, also by the way, Ethereum, we love Ethereum.
yeah,
of course,
Bitcoin, Ethereum, of course."
So that I happened to be up in the morning on Sunday because so I had a very lucky Sunday. I was supposed to wake up 7 a.m., go play pickleball, and my buddy canceled on me. So I was up, I was browsing Twitter, and then I just see this tweet and I'm like, oh my God. So I just immediately got on the computer. Everything starts pumping. I had actually already been long Bitcoin, as I was talking about in the Discord, because I just been kind of buying all the way down, almost bottom tick the low. Pretty good call there. So I was already long Bitcoin and feeling pretty good. Everything's pumping. But then I saw the ETH tweet, the ETH follow-up tweet, and I was like, oh baby. And I just market bought just hundreds of ETH, just market buy. And then like couple minutes later, just ETH starts pumping, and it's just like, oh, this is just how we trade now. We just watch president tweet something, we mash market buy, and then we just make free money.
And apparently. Then you knew to get out at this like weird scam pump.
Okay, so this is actually probably like a really good learning. This is a good learning experience for people who are watching, because if you've browsed crypto Twitter a little bit, you hear traders talking, you hear them say stuff like, oh, don't trust like weekend scam pumps and stuff like that, right? And this is a concept that it took me like a while to understand as like a kind of novice who got into this, started dabbling. I just like didn't understand why this was a thing. I was like, oh, numbers going up, I should just be happy because number will just go up more, right? The main thing that's scary, especially with a market like Bitcoin and Ethereum, like they have futures markets, right? And when we had this pump on Sunday, like by the time the futures market opened, we had like an insane gap. Like this gap was one of the biggest gaps I think ever, like a nearly 10,000 point gap, right? What you'll find is that price tends to wants to go back to the level that it closed the week at for like the TradFi people, right? These TradFi guys, they don't wake up on Monday morning and just FOMO buy whatever the apes on the weekend pumped stuff to, like, especially when it's not liquid. Like price tends to want to go down to fill those gaps, right? So I saw that gap forming and I was telling everybody in the Magic Lines Discord, I was like, get out of stuff, like leave a runner, fine, but just sell, like please sell. Very obvious because you had not only the combination of the gap there, but it was just crime. Like you're just fading crime. Like it was an absolute crime pump. Like we saw, did you see the guy in Hyperliquid just longing, like he put on $200 million or a $200 million long position.
Yeah.
Would have gotten liquidated with like a 1% move, 1 or 1.5% move. And then like coincidentally, it's just like, oh, look at that. It's going to announce an executive order during the worst time of the market, right? And then like Eric Trump, like he just writes one of these like bullshit tweets like, this is why crypto is great. We did this on the weekend where like the retail could get involved and not the big boys. And I was like, the fuck you did. Scammers, like, oh my God. So I feel like fading crime is just generally going to be a good thing when you see it. But it also means the other side of the coin is in play as well, because the other thing I was talking about this morning with the fam is that we got the crypto summit Friday, and yeah, these people pumped their bags, they got this little exit, but do you think they're just going to let the market die going into the crypto summit? Or do you think that they're going to like rebuy at the weekend lows after everybody dumps and is like, fuck? And all they have to do is just make one more tweet on like Wednesday or Thursday or something. Send it right back up, right? And then people will just like inject that hopium into their veins. So got long Solana this morning in anticipation of that. Seems like a good horse to trade. And correlated nicely with the rollback of maybe the rollback of the tariffs and the mineral deal. Maybe that was the thing. Like maybe it's already happened and now we're just going to pump into the summit. But like I just will, and anything in the summit that happens, like short of them being like, we're literally buying like $100 billion of Bitcoin tomorrow. I just have to fade it. I just have to fade it.
What about no capital gains tax on crypto?
I would fade that too. Like, how is that going to get passed? Like the political situation that these people have created for themselves is like completely untenable. Like they're talking about cutting like food stamps and all this shit, right? And then they're like pumping the bags of like donors and like just picking winners and losers, right? It's like, oh, we're gonna add your coin to, like, if they were like, oh, we're adding Tesla to the strategic reserve, like people would lose their shit. But that's like basically what they're doing by like adding Ripple.
Yeah,
just exactly. Like adding Brad's bags to the strategic reserve. So I just don't think there is the political capital to even create a Bitcoin reserve. Never mind a Bitcoin plus ADA reserve. Like it's worth pointing out that the state of Wyoming has been unable to get a Bitcoin reserve, right? So if the state of Wyoming can't get a Bitcoin reserve, how is the US going to get an ADA reserve, right? How is the US going to pass no cap gains on crypto? Like, I just can't see it happening. It's got to be like one of the greatest like all-time fades if you get it. Like maybe just like exit everything and just,
I thought it was like one of those old school negotiation tactics. Like the oldest trick in the book is you want the Bitcoin reserve. So you ask for all this other shit and everyone's like, oh God, none of that, but fine, you can have the Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, that, and look, I've definitely considered that because that does fit in with like Trump's MO. It's like he wants a thing and then he like plays some opening hand and it's just like the worst thing you've ever seen, to the point where you're like offended. Like the Bitcoiners on Twitter, I mean, it's like crazy. Like almost everybody on crypto Twitter is like universally offended by this. And then everybody off of crypto Twitter is very offended by this. You know, like I follow all the left-wing podcasts and everything, and they're talking about this, right? Like oftentimes they don't even acknowledge crypto, right?
Right.
But they are talking about, you know, David Sachs and his stuff, which, you know, though to be fair, he claims he's divested of everything. But like the Brad Garlinghouse stuff with XRP, and it's bad, right? It's definitely objectively bad, and everybody seems to think it's bad. But like if it is just a negotiating ploy, and the end result is just like, all right, fine, just put Bitcoin in, but not everything else, then I guess it's a brilliant 4D underwater chess move. But it still makes it a good play to like fade altcoins and maybe like buy Bitcoin spot or something, kind of hedge.
Here's what I would say to listeners is like, moments like these, I'm so glad that you're following this stuff because I am not. And if only there was a place where somebody could get access to your trading knowledge and your moves, my gosh, what would that be worth?
Oh, thank you, man. So nice of you to show me.
Yeah. So people looking for Steven's trading, magiclines.xyz.
XYZ. If listening to this show once a week is not enough for you, if you need that constant drip, you know? Because sometimes I enter a trade on the show, and sometimes like tomorrow I wake up and I'm like, oh God, I can't do that. And then it's gone. But you won't know. You won't know until next week. And you can't have that. So if you want to talk to me constantly, you want the constant drip of charts all day, just nonstop charts. Yeah, magiclines.xyz/IL. Got to get that /IL in there. And we got a free trial now. You can just try it for 7 days. See if you like it.
Score.
Yeah, if you think it sucks, whatever. Just tell me I suck. Leave. I won't be. I will be offended. Actually, that'll definitely hurt my feelings.
I'd be offended.
Maybe go gentle. Go gentle on that. Oh God. But yeah. Anyway, that's kind of like my game plan for this week. I'm riding so hard right now because it's like you got your long-term thought and then you go what's happening on the short time horizon, right? And like I want to take part in this volatility. Like I want to trade it up and I want to trade it down. Like there's like money lying on the ground sometimes, right? Like the Ethereum trade, it was just like free. It was quite literally free money if you just like staring at Twitter, right? Like it just had to go up. So I want to take part in that, but it's like also I don't know what the hell is happening over the next 3 to 6 months, and I'm biased to the downside. I am worried that I'm not buying enough Bitcoin. Like I really probably should have bought more spot today at like 81. I'm just so strongly, I just feel so strongly that it's going to go lower over the next few months. Right. So I think I'm just going to stick with the plan. I think I'm just going to remain mega cash heavy and just try to ride these little pumps. Like I think we are going to get a pump today and, or pump this week in all the alts and Bitcoin and everything. And it seems like that pump is already underway. So hopefully, by the time you listen to that, maybe you get an entry, maybe you get a little pullback and can ride it. Hopefully it's not over. But yeah, I want to take these short-term trades and just be patient because as we've talked about, I think we do get like the generational portfolio opportunity at some point in the next, I don't know, call it like 2 to 12 months. That's probably my range. It's a pretty big range. Like,
well,
bro, like if we get
instead of like
if we
buying
get it
something,
sorry, go ahead.
instead of buying something and then like you can also make money on the downside. I mean, is that something you're considering?
I mean, I am kind of because I'm like long TLT and I'm short stocks, and I'm short some altcoin pairs versus Bitcoin. So I'm definitely doing well in both directions right now. It's put me in a very zen, peaceful place. So I feel good about that. But yeah, I'm just like thinking forward to the future. Is there anything where you've identified as like oh my God, I cannot wait to buy this thing at this price?
Yeah, I have like a list of stuff that I used to hold that I would love to accumulate sort of at its like 200 week moving average if we get that. These are, I mean, just think of like great mega cap companies that are printing money. Everyone knows all the good names, basically. I want those cheap. We might get
I really want Nvidia, man. I want my Nvidia. I should have taken this freaking short that I drew out. God damn it. It's so clean. But I really think I'm gonna get $86 Nvidia, and I can't wait to buy a lot of it.
You called this one pretty well. When the DeepSeek thing happened, you're like, we're gonna get an actual pump into like 135, and that will be a good short. I think it just like
it just played out exactly like that, and I didn't take. God, sometimes I just miss. Oh, sometimes you just miss trades, man. It's frustrating. Yeah, I mean, $86 Nvidia. I mean, you're 43% off the highs. It looks like it's coming. I mean, maybe nibbling a little around like 105 or something is prudent just in case we do bottom there. But it looks like it for sure wants. Nothing is for sure, but it looks like very high probability of that level, and I just feel like I have to be super happy with that level. I'm just thrilled about buying like the NASDAQ in general. Like I'm gonna buy it all the way down. Probably starting like 10-15% lower from here, and then like if we go down like 30% to some of those zones I drew out, I'm gonna be just shoving in the leap call like leverage on it and everything.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. I'm hoping there's a world this summer where we bid 70K Bitcoin and 30% discounted stocks. God, I don't know if we're gonna get 70K Bitcoin. Sounds optimistic if the stock market goes down another 30%. So,
yeah, dude.
Maybe that's bad. But there's a lot of good crypto charts too. That like if you zoom way out, I think like there's gonna be good buys. I think Solana is going to give you the box here, at least.
Is that double digit?
Sub double digit SOL, I think is like very interesting. If things get ugly, you're gonna get $70 SOL. That's where this thing is interesting to me. It just feels like expensive relative to Bitcoin right now. I'm definitely going to buy Ethereum. Like if we go to like $1,300 or something, that'll be an interesting spot. I mean, that to me is like enough capitulation. I've been saying for a while, like I don't like it hanging around up here. Like I'm just waiting for this last nuke to happen. This last
1,300 is so much pain. that's beyond home. That's like ETH went home.
Yeah, I mean, I think max pain is these lows we left behind here at like 1,000. I think double digit ETH is definitely on the table.
Triple, maybe
double digit ETH is definitely on the table. I think my mortgage the house level on ETH is probably like 750. 750 seems like you gotta go. I know it seems like inconceivable, but like you start to zoom out and just look at what's being produced here. It's like you have this big demand zone. We got basically just like a giant double top, right? If you form a double top, the primary target on the double top is the low that put in the second top there, and that's that, man. I mean, so yeah, I mean, in addition to like, oh my god, like I can't wait to deploy some of this cash in some places. Like I am still just seriously thinking about like what can I short and when and where. And I do think in general it's probably a bad time to be shorting alts right now. If you've been following me on Twitter, you've probably seen that like I've been like kind of bullish alts and being bullish Sol from like 120, 130, which I think is it's been like a very nice trade, but I think it is just a trade. But like the interesting thing on alts that I've been pointing out to people, so if you take total 3 and you divide it by the market cap of Bitcoin, you basically get a ratio of like altcoin market cap to Bitcoin market cap, sort of like a relative performance kind of thing. And it's been kind of like outlining this zone here. I mean, it's basically just a range, right? Altcoins are really expensive here. They're really cheap down here. They're really expensive here. And then as they get towards the bottom of the range, they get kind of relatively cheaper. So I've been pointing out for a while this sort of drift we've had into this prior, resistance, possibly flipped support zone, right? And if you pull out like an RSI chart, you can see basically bullish divergence on the RSI, lower lows and prices, higher lows in RSI. And then if you kind of zoom in to the daily, I mean, there's some like interesting points on the chart, right? Like this was the DeepSeek capitulation, right? And then like, I don't have to pull up the Bitcoin chart, right? You know what the Bitcoin chart looks like. It went here on DeepSeek and then it went here after DeepSeek, right? This was the DeepSeek low. And then we went to 78K. But what did alts do? Put in a higher low. So there's definitely a lot of signs of exhaustion, I think, in altcoin selling, like especially if you look on a relative basis to Bitcoin. So if we can get a scenario where, Bitcoin gets some people buying like the liquidations here in the 80s or high 70s or whatever, and we get like one of these, maybe like an exit pump to 100K or whatever. I mean, that could coincide with like a very, very, very nasty altcoin rally, like nasty good, like nasty.
So hold on.
Nasty
yeah, like
big.
like nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Like I like this chart and I haven't studied it very much, but I wanted to know, like, when you see durable outperformance from alts, is that typically associated with like a massive bull market, or like is that from Bitcoin going down? Like, what? Paint me a sort of a backdrop of when this chart goes higher typically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare to see this chart go higher when Bitcoin goes down. It has been common in the past to see Bitcoin kind of top and then to have alts go wild. What did this look like in 2021? It's a good question, actually. Damn, we put in like a quadruple top there. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I mean, this was an interesting run here because when did Bitcoin top? November. So Bitcoin topped here, right? So we had a period like well after the top of Bitcoin where like alts kind of ripped on a relative basis. It was 45% on that ratio there, which is kind of nutty. So you have these periods where like Bitcoin has topped, it dies, it gains some support, but often like everybody's already sold off like all of the garbage, right? There's nobody left to sell. Bitcoin stabilizes a bit, people trade it back up for like a complacency shoulder. And then while Bitcoin's going back up, after everybody's already like panic sold, if you've gotten everybody out of all the altcoins because they've just gotten nuked, everybody's gotten liquidated, then on that kind of bounce, you can have like a really, really nasty rip for alts. But, just
yeah, this
just
thing when
pump.
it goes higher, it seems to go with some expediency. This thing like
these moves are pretty sharp. I mean, like you barely see the fall pump on here. Like that was like the fall altcoin pump. And to be fair, it was a weird pump because it was kind of contained to some specific sectors, so it was a little hard to take part in. A lot harder than previous alt seasons, and that's kind of the worry. Like, is it going to be the same thing here? Like, is it going to be hard to take part in this altcoin pump? Because what do you buy? You can't just close your eyes and buy anything. So I think like just looking at the strategic reserve stuff, if you want to play alts, like it's pretty good. Because you got a chart like Solana. I was telling everybody to bid this level on the Discord because this is just like a gigantic monthly order block, right? This is just big high time frame demand. So you have this asset trading into support, right? Mega high time frame support. Bitcoin is capitulating. Solana is not really doing all that much worse, right? You get that signs of relative exhaustion. And then suddenly if Bitcoin starts recovering, you've got something like Solana sitting at like monthly demand after like a really nasty sell-off. And then you get a situation where like if all you do is just like backfill, like say all you do is backfill this gap, right? Which I think is definitely a possibility. Maybe you backfill this weekly fair value gap here. Like if you bought this line, it's like a 65% move, right? So you can get some pretty sharp, nasty moves. But ultimately, I think this is probably just a retest and it rolls over. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't trade it, right?
Yeah, you got to be in magic lines for that one.
Yeah. Well, we're talking targets there. The other two obviously that were mentioned that were of note, XRP, ADA. ADA looks pretty good. I actually bought a little bit of ADA earlier today. I know, but it's just like you don't trade the market you want, Eric. You trade the market that you have, and the market we have is criminal. So that's what we do.
Good.
I know. Okay, I got one more thing on the agenda here. I want to chat with you. So there was some big fuss last week because remember AppLovin? We've talked about AppLovin a little bit.
The Knickerbonnie special.
The Knickerbonnie special. This guy is up like 1,500% or so at the top. Heck of a trade. We had earnings. We had earnings last week, right? This all kind of took place, I think, after the show. Didn't really talk about it. Certainly after you and I had our last episode, but like we had some wild price action, as you can see on this chart. I think there were a couple firms that published AppLovin short theses at this point, right?
Well, firms have to be in quotes. Like these firms are called Fuzzy Panda.
Fuzzy Panda. I didn't see the Fuzzy Panda one. I saw the Culper research. They published some stuff here. Let me put some of the takes on the screen here because I thought it was kind of interesting. Do you have any takes on AppLovin? Is something you've ever looked into, thought about?
Yeah. I'm a forced buyer if it goes to 190 by Friday, which doesn't seem likely.
190 by Friday? Yeah, that seems pretty safe.
I when this came out, I was talking to Nick about it, and I basically just have his takes. I have no knowledge on whether or not they're doing anything illegal, which some of these things are accusing them of.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely spent a lot of time in the online AdTech industry, and my God, it is a shady ass business, dude. So when I saw this come out, like none of this was like a shock to me. I feel like there's just like fraud everywhere. It's like almost like the default is fraud. You just expect fraud. It's a wild thing. Yeah, as you said, like we're in an interesting spot because like I've worked here. Nick, is using this thing all the time, and apparently delivers like really good results for them.
Which is all that matters. Like as long as this company is like acting legally, then I would probably lean towards like how are advertisers experience on this? Like, do you get good return on your ad spend? And
there's been a lot of like rebuttal of this from people who are advertising. It seems like a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork, saying like, "Hey, I spend $100 million a year on ads. I run e-commerce ads on this. Like, it gives me a good ROI." So the people coming out are basically like, "You're misrepresenting some elements of this. The performance is quite good, but there's like more elements to this." So like the Culper research in particular is sort of like alleging that they like have this like code injected that basically allows like the automatic downloading of like apps in the background, like without your permission when you click on something, which
is shady.
Seems pretty shady, right? I would say that is the scariest thing here if you're long, because the risk is that people like Nick, they are running ads and they are making a huge ROI, right? But one thing that Culper has like published is like they recently just published that do I have it? Oh yeah, so here published an open letter to Alphabet, right? So they're coming at Sundar right now, basically saying like, hey, this thing is like misusing all of your terms of service, right?
So to try to get them off the Android shop.
So the risk point, yeah. So like if Google is like basically like, hey, we're gonna pause access to whatever API or whatever it is you guys use, because I think they plug into some I don't know if they're plugging into Google's ad network, but they're certainly plugging into the Android store or whatever in some capacity. Like they're very tied to Google, right? So if Sundar is just like, okay, we're gonna pause this for a second, this thing probably just turbo red candles, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if the results are good. Like the market's just going to be like, holy fuck.
Yeah, I agree.
So definitely a risk point there. I looked at the chart. Chart looks pretty bad. It just looks like a distribution blow off top. So I decided to take like a YOLO position on it, like a very YOLO position, like with a very small percentage of my portfolio. Like I'm talking risking like 0.25 R, right? So like a 25% of what I might normally risk on a trade, because this is quite the lotto ticket. But I think if this plays out as like sort of like a blow off distribution fractal, I think price could go quite low, and it could go quite low in a hurry. And I think you could see this sort of revisiting prior demand, and maybe going to like $60 or something. So I bought some like not quite leaps at like $100 for like $3. So
I mean, you have outs there anyways. Like it doesn't have to sort of like get deplatformed by Android.
Well, here's my thinking too, right? Like I don't necessarily have to like hero hold this all the way down. Like if Google does pick up on something, say there is something happening, or there's just like a scare, right? Like if this just spikes down to 240 or 250 or something even, right? Next week or a few weeks from now, those puts they're gonna explode in value, right?
Definitely.
And probably want to just sell them immediately anyway, because when you're trading the options, you always have like the theta decay, right? To worry about. And sometimes when you're in a position and you have that explosion of like downside volatility and the option like rapid adjust, like sometimes it's best to just like take the position off, right? Just take your money and run, and not hold it all the way down to the bottom. So that's what I'm doing. That's a kind of a dumb move I made.
And it's also like
but,
it's a super high beta name. So even if we just get like a further drawdown in the S&P 500, then you're going to win on this thing too.
Correct. Like, so if the economy starts turning south, like people are going to turn off the ad spend, right? And this is kind of like a stairs up, elevator down kind of thing. This move in and of itself is very like staircase, blow off, right? So I think I have a lot of outs. So I kind of like the trade. Like I said, I didn't risk a lot on it. To be fair, like again, like my friends who are in the ad business using this are saying nothing but good things to me about the company and how it makes them money. But what they're saying wouldn't override anything that Culper is writing about. They're claiming to have basically audited the code and to have identified that it does things that are sort of explicitly against the terms and services of Google, and is now actively lobbying Google to do something, right? So that's kind of what you're basically playing. It's just that first move. So if I get so fortunate enough as to have this move in my direction, yeah, probably shave like 75-80% of it off. Maybe let the rest of it ride.
I like the trade. I mean, it's a super stretch valuation as well. I mean, everything just goes sideways and this goes down just because, like.
Yeah, I mean, what if this thing hit like some astronomical? This thing hit like 170 billion or something stupid?
Yeah, it was trading at like 50 times sales or something, which is insane.
Went full Palantir.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you got outs. I like it.
Yeah, I got outs, baby. It's a good lotto ticket. Definitely would not classify this as this is not an investment.
Well, I like going long puts if you want to be short something. So you have like defined risk exposure.
Yeah, I didn't do anything fancy here. I was just like, I'm going to risk X dollars on put and just click buy.
Yeah. I like it.
It's a small enough position that like I would consider adding to it, because you could always even like do the old double blow off kind of thing. You're up thrust and then you're up thrust after distribution. It'll take a while to play out, but be a hell of a trade.
How far out did you go in maturity? Probably think about like August.
I think I did I think I did January.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. So I have some time on my side. Be sitting back and watching. Be a fun sweat, Eric. Be a fun sweat.
I might play with you. That sounds fun.
All right, cool. Yeah. So if anybody else wants to lose 0.25% of your account with me, feel free to feel free to tag along, and then we'll share a beer about it someday.
Share a beer.
Sheer beer. I can't talk, man. I've been talking all morning. It's hard. Oh,
you're doing great.
Anyway, I think it's been a fun episode. Let's wrap it there. Good to have you back, buddy. Good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good to be back. Good to see you again.
Awesome. I will see you and everybody else next week. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Adios.